So I have a question. My question is, I've heard a lot of like young people build products in tech that get them like $1,000,000, $1,000. Like if one wants to build this kind of products, how is it just like they build it for fun and then it later turns out to be something big, or they sat down with it, or okay, I know it has to be like a solution to a problem, but like, is it something they do for fun? Like you just keep developing different things and then one will just hit jackpot, or how does it work? I don't know if there's anybody that can.
I'm going to try my best to answer that question. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I'll start by saying I started my first startup. My first startup was in 2013, 2014. At that
Okay.
time, there is this kind of number one thing. If you have a product idea, especially as a techie or as someone that is into like as a techie, right? If you have an idea, firstly, the idea would come from from your skill, right? At that time, I was building what we called. I had two products. I was working on one for schools and one for homes. Right. It was a very
Okay.
beautiful product. I don't know if I've actually talked about this here before. It was a very interesting. The second was really very nice. Even the first one also was really very nice. It's like an RFID based attendance system, and also it helps you to automatically like ring bells in schools and all. That was the first one. The second one was like an automatic
Oh
change of
wow.
system that actually switches from generator to NEPA and turn off your
Are you
generator, giving you allow
serious?
helping you to actually minimize your fuel usage and all those things. You know, it
Wow.
was a very beautiful idea at that time, about 10 years ago or more, or about 11 years ago.
I
The
find
idea
it
was
beautiful right now.
yeah, yeah, the idea was great. You know, that was when I was still using 8-bit microcontrollers and all. And we had a lot of people that were interested. People were already using this product. We're selling it to people that sells electronics. We sell people to people that sells electronics shops. We sell it for 5,000. We try to make it as cheap as possible, you know, and then we sell it for 5,000. Those people that resell it for us, they sell it for 25, 30,000 to the end users
Wow.
and all. You know, at the end of the day, we realized that we're not making profit. The stress was much. We have to sell one product to be able to make money from, you know, to build another one. It wasn't profitable. I learned from that mistake. The first company crashed, right? I learned from that mistake. After 2, 3 years later in 2016, I started another project. And this time I knew finance was the first one, was the reason why the first company crashed. This time around, I ensured that okay, this product I was going to take out, it has to make sense, and I have to be able to convince somebody at that time to be able to, you know, invest. This was the early stage. This was the time startups were just booming in Nigeria, startups and all those things. You know, then I was able to build a prototype. Okay, I built a
Mm-hmm.
prototype. I think the first prototype was with my money. No, it wasn't with my money. No, I think I was able to build a prototype. Right, they call that MVP. You know, yeah, something that you might have to build to show that yes, and all these things comes out from passion. Okay, if you have the skill, you always find a solution, a problem to solve, right? You always find a problem to solve. So I was like, there is a gap in our education system whereby people don't. What I do low level, right? Low level means it's very difficult. Out of everybody that is here now, I doubt if anybody is doing low level. You know, if you ever see someone that is doing low level programming, maybe one or two people. Okay, so it's a very nice, you know, part of tech. Especially when you're in places like India and all, it's very big industry. But in Nigeria, people are not really into that field. So I wanted to connect, you know, not just connecting people. At the same time, I wanted to just, you know, make ensure that even someone that is a layman or someone that doesn't even understand programming, once they pick up the board, they can easily build something with it. Not just for education, but yes, if you're thinking of a tech, we were able to write about 500 libraries at that time. I'm talking about 2016. So when the prototype was ready, I was able to
Wow.
get a funding in 2016, 2017. Somebody from Nigeria actually, two people actually, they actually invested 50 million naira to into the companies.
Wow.
50 million naira at that time for me, it was a big money, right? So they invested, we
Mm-hmm.
started manufacturing, we started going to schools, even schools like Covenant University, University of Lagos, Futa in Akure, and all those places. Many, many other schools, you know, secondary schools also. They know about this product I'm talking about, you know. So now this idea actually comes from this idea or this product of being an entrepreneur or being what do they call it? A founder actually comes from your passion. Firstly, you have the skill. Now, how do you use that skill? To turn it, how to use that skill to solve a particular problems, right? A problem. Now, fast forward in 2020, I relocated to New Delhi, India. This is where my eyes actually opened to how startups work. This company, I won't mention the name of the company, is one of the top three automotive electric vehicle company, biggest electric vehicle company in India at the moment, right? And this company at that time was just a startup. So the CEO of that company was just trying to raise funds. Now, when I talk about investors, these are people that have millions in dollars, that worth millions in dollars. Whenever they come to the company, the product is not yet ready. But at least the people that they have at that time, the people they have in the company, we are the one that okay, will actually we present to investors, this is what we are working on, this is what the vehicle is doing. Even when the vehicle when the product is not ready, investors are still pumping money. Now what happened? The idea, you look at your environment, you look at where you are at the moment, you look at what is the problem. I think problems always the challenge is not just about startup is not about even you having the skill. It's about firstly discovering what the problem is and how
Mm,
do you have the capacity to solve that problem. Okay, so the
mm,
person that actually started one of the biggest EV companies in New Delhi or in India as a whole, pollution was one of the biggest problem in India. Pollution, their
mm.
temperature during summer it goes up to 50 degrees due to the pollution because there are a lot of all these three-wheeler vehicles, four-wheeler vehicles and all. So he wanted to solve this problem by introducing electric vehicles into the environment, at least to minimize these pollutions from smokes and all. So you look at your
Yeah.
environment, you look at how you can solve it with the skills that you have. I think that is what actually, like me now, I'm actually in Europe and I've actually discovered more than 5 things. People go into fintech. There are many things you can go to. There are many startups. I've thought of about 5 different products that I can easily start up in Nigeria. And they are going to yield millions of dollars. So you look at what you have. Even here in Europe that I am, I'm actually working on my startup also. You look at your environment, you look at okay, what the problem is and how you can use your own skill. If you don't have the skill, that's why we used to have co-founders. Look for people that have that skill. You become the CEO, the manager, while the person that is going to deploy or develop the product also become your co-founder. Being a co-founder is also a business. If you go to Y Combinator or a combinator, once you look for co-founders, the essence of this co-founder is look for the people that have that skill that you're looking for. You might be a techie, you might be looking
Oh,
for someone that knows how to
okay.
manage and sell a product. Then you guys become co-founders. So I think the product, the idea doesn't just jump on you. You have to think of what the problem is in your environment, what problem you want to solve, and then do you have the capacity? You don't have the capacity, look for people that have the capacity, share the idea. The person that you and the person have to be on the same page, you have to share the same vision. And then once you try as much to produce to have a minimum, we call it MVP. At least let's have something to show to an investor that okay, this thing, some parts are working, and or maybe some part of the project is working, but if you can secure a particular funding, so amount, there are something they call seed funding, right? These are the kind of funding you get from friends, family, or people that you know closer, before you start
Okay.
up. Yeah. So yeah, they call it seed funding, right? So if you can secure a seed funding, like people that invested 50 million at that time for me in 2016, it was more like a seed funding, right? So once you have an MVP, you show them someone that wants to drop money, they have to see what you want to do at first. Once they're able to see, okay, this is going to become a big picture in the future, they are going to drop their money. And once they drop their money, once the major first product is ready, you can start looking for other investors to join in. But you should be able to convince them that this is going to be a multi-million dollar company or billion-dollar company in the future. So me, in my own little stay in India, I've actually, the company I worked for, I was part of the process where we were able to raise even up to more than 50 to $100 million. I was part of the process before I left New Delhi, about 2, 3 years ago. So this is just how it works, and sometimes, things might be difficult, but yeah, if you have the right people, it's going to be, you're going to enjoy the process. During my stay at that time, I was just enjoying the process. It was interesting. I was so happy that I'm actually making a change. I was so happy. I was seeing myself as Elon Musk at that time. But yeah, that's how it works. I know that many people, some people, other people might have some, their own opinion also. But I think this is the little I can share for now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I mean, so Yeah, I've learned that you basically have to solve a problem, but how does the founder co-founder thing works? I know you've talked about the fact that the co-founder is more like maybe I have the idea, I could do some parts, and the other person, maybe I need someone in a particular aspect for the project, so I get the co-founder to do that. But in terms of, okay, let's say the business grows and everything works out fine, how does the revenue works within the founder, co-founder, and stuffs like that?
Okay, let me just quickly talk.
And basically, sorry, before you answer my question. So you have founder, co-founder, and you have other team
Yeah.
members. All right. For somebody who is low on funds and
Mm.
does not have an investor and has a startup that they want to build, how do you think they can like start it like without funds, like just getting people to volunteer? And how do you compensate those people that are part of the project from scratch when it eventually grows?
Okay, I'll quickly answer that, please. So when I was in India, it was my first time to be earning in millions, right? But before I actually moved to India, there is something in India. I don't know how it works here in other part of Europe or Nigeria, but they call it ESOP. ESOP is called Employee Stock Ownership Plan. Employee stock ownership plan, and this kind of plan is given to like talent that are going to be working in that company. So it will be part of the company's agreement. For example, if they're supposed to be paying you $100,000 per annum, the company can say, oh, we are going to be paying you $70,000 per annum, but the remaining the $30,000 will be used as your ESOP. What does ESOP means? ESOP is like a share that you're given in the company. Let's assume the company, when you joined, worth about $1 million. The more the company continue to raise fund, maybe the company now, maybe after 2 years, the company worth about $50 million, from 1 million to 50 million. Your ESOP automatically also increases by 50. You understand? So this is a way that early startups used to retain talent. Now, for example, mostly if you have an idea and you know that you don't have skills to actually achieve, you don't have all the skills to achieve it. That is what they used to look for. Mostly co-founders are technical guys, people that actually can actually ensure that they have the resources, the skill, technical skills to ensure that this product actually comes to reality. You understand? So mostly co-founders, if you don't have required skill, mostly co-founders. Like when I was the startup I joined, like the startup I work with in India, the CEO is a software engineer, but he doesn't have knowledge about how embedded systems work, right? So he
Okay.
recruited many people. Even he doesn't. He was working in one of the biggest companies in the US before relocating. But all we during that time we have team from mechanical team, we have team from SCM, which is the supply chain team. We have team from software, we have team from embedded, we have team from AI, and he doesn't have all those skills, right? But actually, he doesn't even have a co-founder, but he had what we call the VP, vice president of engineering, vice president of
Okay.
technology, and all those
Okay.
things. So mostly co-founders are people that actually it doesn't necessarily, if you have the technical skill and you want to look for a co-founder, for example, your co-founder must have a skill of what we call the sales skill. There's people that are also specialized in raising funds. Also, at that time, you also have specific people that their own job is to help you to raise fund. You understand? There are people for everything. But what I'm trying to say is that if you have an idea and you want to convince people to work with you, one of the things they still use it in India is they call it ESOP, which is the Employee Stock Ownership Plan, so that when the company finally gets to IPO is when people start buying shares. Automatically, you automatically become a multi-millionaire. And I think this is one of the easiest way we software engineers or we techies make money from. For me, for example, the salary I was earning, even though it was much, at the end of the day, I've used the money for something else, But my stock still continue to grow. Now the company is valued about $1 billion now. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to tell you the name, but you can search for Euler Motors, right? Euler Motors in India. It's valued at $1 billion now. At that time when I joined, it was just $2 million, right? So the valuation was about $2 million. So this is one of the easiest way. So if you want to, that was why I was talking about. I wanted to talk about this
Okay,
problem. Yeah,
sorry, Olayiwola. I
yeah,
find this conversation interesting.
yeah.
You said the company was previously valued $2 million
Dollars, yeah,
and now
yeah,
about $1 billion.
yeah.
What is it like the investments other people have in the company that drives the
Yes.
revenue
Yes,
company?
yes. If you have to raise money, for example, a company so far has raised about 120 to $150 million. That is the money they've raised. But the valuation is always different, right? I don't want to go. There are many people that are specialized in this field, okay? When it talks about valuation and all, you might have raised $120 million,
Thank you,
and the company
Mister.
might be valued, at $1 billion or $500 million. There are people that really knows this area, right, properly. But the little time I've worked in this startup, I was able to understand, when it was valued at $2 million, it was just seed funding they used, maybe from his own and also from family, right? Then he started getting funding from different people, And I think so far they've raised they've actually completed around Series C. I think recently they raised about 40 to 50 million dollars. Now, but what I'm trying to say in essence is that if you want to retain talent, to convince them to work with you, you should have an ownership plan, like a shares for them also, that would make them to have this kind of. At that time when I was working, also I forgot my own personal startup, because I believe that, okay, since I already have shares in this company,
Yeah.
automatically it's also my own company. If the company progresses, it's automatically my own value
That
also.
makes sense.
Yeah, so this is the method that Indians use to retain talent. So I don't know how it works in other parts of the world, but if you can
But
go
do you
to.
have like a book, or
Yeah,
do
yeah,
you have
yeah. I
like a
still have
book
my.
you can recommend on how
Okay,
to
okay, sorry.
work
Yeah,
on
so
shares
I don't
and
have
stuff?
book. I don't have book about that. But yeah, but I have friends that their job is about this ESOP and all those things. Stock, employee stocks and all ownership stuff and all. But you can check also. You can read about it online. If you just type ESOP on Google, it might recommend some PDFs or something to read. But there are people that are specialized in this field. You understand about ESOP and stocks and all those things. Yeah, we have them in the company at that time also. So you can just check it out also. And this is my own personal experience. People might have different experience based on their own location, maybe in the US or in Europe. But at that time where I had my own shares was in India, and they have this plan which is called ESOP, and it really worked well. So I have my own document that even if I'm not available tomorrow, my family can actually present that document to show that yes, I have so shares in the company. So that is how they do it. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, like that makes a lot of sense, because if I'm working on a project for a company and I know that I have shares in the company, that would even motivate me to work harder. I know that I'm not losing that much and my investments will definitely pay off.
That is why I
I mean,
wanted.
like,
That's why I wanted us to talk on the topic on, does it worth it to work for a startup or to work for a giant tech company? Many people don't know this secret. It is easier for somebody to make money when you're working with a startup than you to work for a giant company that they will just be paying $100K or 150, $200,000. This money they just paid to you, but you are not part of the growth of the company. So that is why maybe in the future we might talk about, does it worth it to work for a startup
but that
or
would
to
be
work.
for startup that is offering this kind of offer of like shares with
Yeah.
them. Some companies, I don't think it's all startups that offer that.
It's not all startups, right? Basically, but startups also pay as much as what Google and all these big companies will pay you. But yeah, if you want to become part of a startup, also, you must be extraordinary talented. Before, not everybody that works for a startup, like I said, I met people and they didn't give them all this plan, right? So, but if you are working as a talent and they know that your talent is resourceful, is going to drive the company's growth, they are going to actually give you this option just to ensure that they retain you, from leaving the company for a bigger one. That is just it. But not all. It depends
It's
on your
just
skill.
it's not
Yeah.
the offer is not for everybody. So like
Yes.
if I'm starting a startup, for example, now,
Yes.
this kind of shares offer won't be for everybody that is working with me.
Yes.
It's basically going to be for potentials that I don't
Yes.
want to
You got
lose
it.
on the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So like what percentage of shares are we looking at? Like what's like okay, so for someone that I know that this person has potential and the person is like the top that I have presently, like working with me, what percentage of shares do you think we might be looking at max for an
So
employee?
they used to
Max.
have they used to have what we call the vexation period, if I'm right, because it's been a while. You can read all this. Is it yeah? I think it's vexation period, vesting period, right? Now, if they give you at that time, I was given a shares about 250 shares, in the company at that time, and then these shares it won't be fully vested, until maybe after 3 years, my 3 years or 4 years in that company, right? So in the first year, maybe 25% of that shares would be achieved. Then the following year, maybe I will achieve the next another 25%. So every year is going to, so it will continue to grow until you won't get the whole shares at once. Okay, so the first, if you're giving 250 shares now, so that the first step will just be if you complete 1 year, that will be 250 divided by 4. So that determines the number of shares that you have for the first year. So they call it vesting period, right? So in this case, they always have a legal lawyer. You can't just, because many people, they have investors, right? You can't just give out money like that. So they always have people, legal people that actually specialize. I have people like that in India that are specialized in this one, and they look at the company's worth, they look at the company's valuation and all those things, and then they'll be able to determine, okay, this person, if you're giving it 250 shares of the company, okay, this is based on your potential, right? There are some people that they gave 500, depending on your potential and how maybe how close you are, or how, for example, maybe maybe the first period has actually elapsed, the first 250 shares, and then they still want to retain you. There are some people that they still give more, right? So what I'm trying to say in essence is, you don't receive all the money at once. You don't say, because I've given you shares now, the next 1 month or the next 6 months, you say you want to leave again because you already have shares. So you have to go through that vesting period, which is like you won't receive all the money. You only receive maybe 1/4%, for about 25% in the first year, another 25 in the second, just to ensure that you actually stayed in the company for at least 4 years until it's fully vested, for you to be able to claim the money. You understand? So you have people, like I said, I'm not an expert in this field because there are a lot of legal things that are involved also. So you won't be able, even you don't even have the right to determine what kind of share. Yeah, the CEO, the founder can determine, but the investors also will ensure that you're not giving too much to a person, because they are also going to be paying you. But yeah, but they just want to ensure that you're not being distracted by other companies to drive you away from the company. That is why they give this to the employees, that have the potential to grow the company. I hope I answer your question a little bit. You know,
Yes, you did. You did. I've learned a whole lot from everything you said. I don't know if any other person has a question or has something to say um about the topic. Oh, okay. I hope I'm not the only one like learning from this. I hope we have other people learning from everything he said as well. Okay, so Olaiwola, thank you so much. I've learned a lot from everything you said, and I'm going to read more on it and check YouTube about everything you've said. That was really, really, really helpful. So yeah, for example, now I am into like data analytics, machine learning. Um I have few problems that I have like few problems I've noted out. So for example, I'm not a developer now. So if I need to like deploy maybe a model I built, I could make maybe a developer my co-founder, right? According to everything you said, right?
yes, if you're not a developer and you want to convince somebody to, that is someone that have that skill, right? You can let the person, you can share your idea with that person, but before you do that, the person has to sign an NDA. Yes, have to sign NDA, which is non-disclosure agreement. That if I have to tell you about this idea, firstly, it must not. I have the right to sue you if eventually you end up doing the same thing. So the person that you want to
Okay.
co-found with that have that skill is that the first thing is to have an NDA agreement, sorry, NDA with that person. And after that, you can now start discussing about, okay, this is my idea and this is the person's part. Like, okay, you're going to be a co-founder, this is going to be your own share, in a long run, so let me give you from my own perspective. When I was in Nigeria, I hope I'm not talking too much. Let me give
No,
you
you're not. Sorry, Olaiwola. If you are a product developer, you can check the comment section. I'm listening, Olaiwola.
Yeah, so this is what happened when I had my own startup in Nigeria. At first, I was given 25%, right? And I
Okay.
forgotten the valuation of the company when the first 50 million naira was invested at that time, right, in 2016. But along the line, when the company started bringing in investors in Nigeria, right, they started getting money from other investors. My own percentage actually reduced from that 25%. It actually moved to 20%, right? But at that
Okay.
20 at that 20%, the valuation was different, but the percentage, because more people are coming on board, right? That was my own personal experience in Nigeria. But in India,
Okay.
basically, I
Mm-hmm.
was part of the startup. I wasn't part of I wasn't part of the main people that, doing this, shares allocation and all those things. So I won't be able to say
Yeah.
is a particular amount you have. Maybe the co-founder might say, you might say, okay, it's going to be 70-30 or 80-20. Yeah, someone that is having 20% in a startup, it's also a big thing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so that is how it works. So the more you get informed in from external bodies, the more your percentage continue to reduce. It continues to reduce. That means that there's something they call. Okay, let me give you an example. When I was living in India, the CEO called me. He said, "Now that I'm leaving, are you going to let your shares are you going to, when the company gets to IPO, are you going to leave it there, or do you want me to buy it?" He was asking me that, do you want me to buy it? So
Oh.
they can also buy those stock from the employer, in the long run. I think some companies did that when I was in India. When the company started, when they were stable at some point, they started buying those stocks from their employers. It was a big money at a particular rate. I don't know much about these things, and because I've left this startup thing for about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really very wide. You really need to read.
Okay. So you said something about DA something, the agreement.
Yeah, NDA,
All
non-disclosure.
right. So
Yeah,
how
that is the
do
best.
how do one get that? So let's say I need to get that. How do I go about it?
You
Do you
can
have an
find a
idea?
lawyer to write it. You can also write, but it's always good to have a legal backup. You write it, you explain to a lawyer, okay, you have an idea, you want to bring in somebody. Even complaints to complain also write NDA. It's something that is popular. So you just tell a lawyer to just draft maybe 20,000 naira or 10,000 naira. Okay, this is, you want to tell somebody about the idea, we have the potential skill, right, to add in value to that complaint. But you don't want the situation whereby when you tell that person, the person is going to steal the idea. So they are going to draft a letter, and the condition that if this idea later leaks from this person's hand, then the person actually has to pay for it. A huge sum of money that the person might not be able to afford. So once you have this, the person is going to sign. You send the PDF to that person firstly. He's going to sign. You are going to sign it before you can now start talking about the idea you have. You know. So
Oh. So
so
you have to protect the idea at
yes,
all
yes, it's very
costs.
important. Yeah, it's very important.
Okay, so now let's say, for example, I hope my question is not too much.
It's fine if I can answer. I will answer it.
Okay. Okay, so let's say now, for example, for the project, you said something like you could make your co-founder like a sales or marketing person as well. So now I need a developer, I need a sales and marketing person. Can we have more than one co-founder?
Yeah, so I've seen situations because I have lived in New Delhi is a competitive place to live. You see a lot of it's a place where everybody wants to become especially India as a whole, everybody wants to become a founder. You understand? Yeah, you can have more than one co-founder, right? But at that time, you would not be a founder anymore. You also be a co-founder. But one thing is that instead of having a co-founder, you can also put out this employee stock of a thing there. That okay, I'm the founder, I'm the owner of this idea. If you have to work with me, I'm going to give you a share. So the person might just be holding a position of CTO, not necessarily a co-founder. You understand? And being a CTO also, the person will manage every technical part of the project at the same time. I'm just talking about tech, and also like I have a friend which is called Vani. Also, she's an Indian lady, right? And she was also she was the major person that was driving the sales. But instead of this, my friend Sarah, who is the CEO, to give her the co-founder position, he gave her the VP of sales, vice president of sales, right? So because she has her own shares, so that makes you to be the major person, the major founder of this idea, owner of this idea. But you now have people that yes, they also have shares in the company, and they also hold top position like the vice president and all those things. Vice president of technology, vice president of management, of sales management, vice president of SCM, different supply and all those things. So, but you still remain the founder. Why you not have potential people? So instead of having more than one co-founder now, you might have VPs responsible for each section of the of the startup. So this will save. They will definitely have at the same time they will still gain the same thing, which is they will have shares maybe 5%, 2%, which is a whole lot, and at the same time they will be responsible for their task. So making them VP, CTO, I think That will say much than become having too many co-founders.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. That makes sense. That's very helpful. Thank you so much, Olaiwola. I've learned so much. Like I've had this question in mind for a while now, and I think I have answers to the question already. Thank you.